Our topic today is about Nigerian crypto traders and liquidity. Millions of young Nigerians are now active in the crypto market, trading Bitcoin, USDT, Ethereum, and Solana. This phenomenon is as a result of the Nigeria economy decline. Since the 2020 pandemic, Nigeria has seen a 25% decline in its local currency, the naira. But as a result, since 2020, Bitcoin have appreciated at about 400%. So the young professionals that trade in Bitcoin don't just see Bitcoin as an asset. They see it as a way to hedge against poverty, and they see it as a way to hedge against the devaluing naira on a constant basis. Nigeria is among the top 5 countries in the world that use crypto as a trading transaction. They don't just keep it in their digital wallet and wait for it to appreciate. They actually use it for their day-to-day trading. The danger zone with this is most platforms where trading are done, they let traders use leverage. I'm not saying leverage is a bad thing. If you know what you're doing, a lot of people have made a lot of money by leverage, borrowing from your brokerage firm that lets you trade and quadrupling your amount. This can be a game changer. This is what takes people from a regular Joe to a good trader, somebody that makes a whole lot of money. But what happens when an average Joe trades from his computer at home and they compete with quant firm? A quant firm is, I would say, a regular company that trades in the crypto or in the stock market. The distinction is they don't use intuition to trade. They use analysis, mathematics, equations, and models. So around late 2025, there was a pattern that occurred, and a lot of crypto traders started noticing it. It was called the 10 a.m. phenomenon, or in Nigeria, it would take place around 3 p.m., where they would notice the price of Bitcoin would drop at exactly 10 a.m., which would trigger a lot of call options. And as this triggered a lot of call options, small traders were wiped out of the market. This usually happens as a result of the leverage. So, like I said, good or bad is hard to tell. I am not saying leverage is bad. What I am saying is when there is a tank in the market or a drastic change in the price, the leverage or the company that loans money actually calls this money, which results in a lot of players being out of the game. Nigeria have a lot of small traders. And when I mean a lot of small traders, I mean people that trade in the stock market between $100 to about $10,000. That's about 70% of the traders in Nigeria. And this 10 a.m. phenomenon or 3 p.m. Nigerian time phenomenon has been analyzed by a lot of crypto traders as a liquidity trap, right? Not in the concept of a liquidity trap, but in the concept of these traders that trade in the market, they lose their money because their accounts are being called, right? So what this means is if you loan money from Binance and you have a leverage that says Bitcoin will not drop below, for lack of a better example, I would say $10. But during the 3 p.m. liquidation in the market, Bitcoin drops to about $8. By default, the $10 that was loaned from your brokerage firm has to be called because the brokerage firm is trying to limit its losses in the market. And by limiting its losses, this gets a lot of people out of the market and in some situation in debt. As a result, understanding the stability of the market and seeing how it affects young traders in Africa is necessary. The spoiler is most people that trade in Nigeria are usually people trying to pay their rent, trying to put food on their table. They are not organized firms. They don't have PhD in mathematics. They don't use lots of digital quant or drives, and they don't use algorithm to make their decisions. They use intuitions and they actually wait for the news to see where the market goes. So with the liquidity trap or the 10 p.m. phenomenon, the funny part of this story is around February, a lawsuit was filed against a firm. And once that lawsuit was filed, the 10 a.m. dip in the price of Bitcoin, or in Nigeria, the 3 p.m. dip in the price of Bitcoin actually stopped. And this was going on from late November 2025 all the way to February 2026. And as a result of this phenomenon happening, a lot of people got wiped out of the market. Now, the firm that was sued said they had done nothing wrong because they actually played according to the playbook, citing the SHO Rule 200, which allows the firm to actually expose its long position, but on the other hand, hides its short position. Now, when the average Joe is trading and they see big major companies buying lots of bitcoins or placing leverages in bets on a long call, this gives the average Joe or the average trader the illusion that they're following the market, right? Or they're following the market's animal spirit, which is kind of optimism and pessimism and what's going on. But on the other hand, they are unaware that the same firm that placed a long position, and by law, under the SHO rule, they are allowed to show this their long position. This also allows, that rule also can prevents them from showing their short positions. So the myth is people at that point start believing that the price of Bitcoin followed the traders' optimism and pessimism, but they were relying to say that what was going on in the market was an artificial glitch rather than letting the economy or the ups and down of stock markets or gold or petrol to affect the price of Bitcoin. The lawsuit claimed that Bitcoin was being manipulated by a particular firm. And as a result, it cost a lot of people money and it cost a lot of people to lose. So, what is a quant firm, right? Because this whole deliberation or the whole allegation is faced under a particular quant firm. So quant firms can be broken down into three major groups. There's the high frequency traders. The high frequency traders, they trade with their money. And these are the groups we're focusing on. And because of they are using their money and not clients' money, they are allowed to show their long position, but they're not allowed to show their short position. They have hedge funds, right? Hedge funds usually use statistic arbitration as their strategy. So, for instance, if they buy the stock of Coca-Cola, they look at Coca-Cola trend in comparison to Pepsi. And if for some reason Pepsi starts to trade downwards because of the two companies are in the same industry, they get to sell their Coca-Cola position and buy Pepsi because they know eventually Pepsi will get back to the price, right? There's a correlation in the move of the price of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So that's kind of the strategy of hedge funds. And then we have the banking divisions, right? Most of the banking divisions, they kind of work with a long run strategy, right? Because the stock market in the long run, it goes up. So they have their trades, they keep it in the market and it stays as it is. So talking about Nigeria, while doing my research, it was fundamental that I didn't find even one single quant firm trading in Nigeria. Most of the quant firms that trade in the stock or in the crypto, focusing on crypto in this conversation, are all based in the United States, right? The big players, Citadel, Jane Street, and Jump Trader, big three, making a lot of profits, very good at what they do. In Europe, they have XTX markets, and in Asia, they have the Grasshoppers, Singapore to be precise. And in Africa as a whole, the two I could find were based in South Africa. So Nigeria has zero representation of a quant firm, but Nigeria is among the top 5 countries in the world that actually use cryptocurrencies for transaction. And 80% of the traders in Nigeria trade between $100 and $10,000. So who does this hurt? The temp phenomenon, the quant algorithm, the artificial glitch in the system, or the artificial movement of up and down of the cryptocurrency. Yes, it hurts everyone in the market holistically. But in America, most people trade in crypto or in the stock market as a luxury or as a future withdrawal. Maybe in times of hardship, very, very slim, but mostly for when they retire. So most people start investing in the stock market within the age of 20 on average. And their hope is by the time they're 67 at retirement or 70, their positions would have appreciated and they would have made a whole lot of money. But in Nigeria, the story is different. Because of the economy, the inflation, and the hardship, a lot of people trade as a lifeline. Like this is their day job. This is how they hope to turn the tide. And if you're trading with 100 to 10,000 US dollars, that's not enough money to change the tide. And that takes them to leverage, right? We spoke about leverage in the beginning. So expanding on the leverage, that takes them to leverage. That makes them loan money to trade. Because the more money you can loan, the more profits you can make. And that might change the story. But on the flip side, when firms use small traders as liquidity, as a way to grab their money or as a way to create artificial glitches that the small traders are unable to react to on time, this causes a major problem. So the evidence suggests three things. Playing in the field is not a level game, right? So people in Nigeria, they're using their phones, they're using their laptop, fast, super, but nothing compared to satellite quant computers algorithms trading. The leverage by the traders are so large that it wipes them out and put them at a worse position. And on the flip side, countries like India and China have regulated quant firms or even suspended quant firms in their country from trading because India and China have a lot of individual small traders like Nigeria. And their regulating bodies looked at it. In India, the SEBI; in China, they looked at it and they stopped the quant firms from such practices, saying that that is not fair trading. They are outbidding the average Joe and trying to monopolize the market. And once a particular firm is able to monopolize the market, once a particular firm is able to have enough buy power to swing, to increase or decrease the price, then it's not a fair game. That actually bumps people out. So, what Nigeria needs to do moving forward? Start quant firms. Or, if nobody wants to start quant firms, all the small traders can collaborate together or unite and start one quant firm, right? There's power in numbers. And the goal is not to be an easy layup for the bigger quant firms outside of Nigeria so that you can have a little power to trade. So what do we do next?